Good afternoon. So as promised from a post earlier this week, I offered up some different suggestions or ideas of a video for me to make over this long 4-day weekend, and on numerous of the comments the Fox engine was mentioned. So here it is. This is the Fox engine. Now this is perhaps a Fox engine that many of you have not seen before. You've all probably heard of a Fox 40, but this Fox 40 is a BBRC, much like the other ones that came after this one, but this is actually part number 24100. And you can see, if you're familiar with Fox engines, it has a different style box than later ones where it had like they opened up and multiple openings and a lot of foam in there. But this one says Fox BB40RC equipped with the Fox Mark 10 carb. Now I'll get into talking about the Mark 10 carb a little bit more, but let me just show you all sides of this box for those that are real aficionados of Fox. This, and of course this one's written upside down, this side, and they just keep doing that. So this is actually a 1982 version Fox 40. And this particular one I got from eBay, I think I paid $50 for this, and it said it was a used engine. And if it's used, it's very lightly used. And this is exactly how it came to me. It came with a Fox RC long glow plug or idle bar plug installed. It was a little tight, and I have put a little bit of 3-in-1 oil in it and on it, and it feels like this carb is tightened up again too. So, and I've heated it up to try and get it loosened up. But neither high speed nor the low speed needle are installed, so they're both in here, and they both look different. But this is all that came with it. There were no instructions or anything. Fortunately for me, Mikoa actually has some pretty decent information covering this engine, and I was able to print out the actual PDF for this engine, and I'm showing you bits and pieces of it here, and I'll put a link in the description of the video. But the one thing about this engine is it's a 1982 vintage engine. I could not find the normal review article on this exact engine at all. There are several on the Fox 40 BBRC, but they're not this exact model. Now the one thing about this particular model is, as you can see from the box, it wasn't cut out and it didn't come provided with an exhaust. So I didn't realize that this was going to be almost impossible to get an exhaust for at the time I bought it. Otherwise I might have thought twice about doing it. Because I've got an image I'll put on the screen here, but you can see, let me zoom in just a little bit more here. You can see the shape of this exhaust port, and the Mikoa site actually has a, this is where I got this image from. They have a really good image there showing and explaining that this is a very different size, the spacing and the shape, different size exhaust opening than all later model Fox engines of this displacement size, the 40, 45, 46, 50. So those exhausts will not fit on this engine at all. So I was like, holy crap, I got this engine. I don't want to run it open exhaust. Let me just keep rotating it so you can kind of take a look at it. I don't want to run it open exhaust. That would suck. But anyway, this engine, I don't see any screw mounting lugs. So if this was run, it said used. I'm not sure if the person that sold it really knew. I don't remember exactly what the ad said because it's been several months. But I don't see indications that there's been screws or that this has been mounted. If it was run, maybe it was simply run on a test stand, or maybe when they said used and they felt it was gummy, it was because it had been run at the factory, because back in this time, 1980s, early 80s, I believe Fox was still running all of their engines prior to shipping them. So that could have been all it was. Now if you look here real close, you don't see a piston ring. And you won't, because this isn't a ringed engine. Now here in this image it shows the one I've got here, 24100 Fox 40 BB Schnurley. and then they have the bushing version, which obviously mine's the ball bearing version, but in this doesn't mention anything about the construction. So knowing that most other Foxes were steel sleeve and iron piston, I am left to assume that this is a cast iron piston and steel sleeved engine. Now the only way I would know for sure is if I took the head off and put a magnet on the head or on the piston. But you know, in all honesty, I don't really want to go and do a look inside on this engine. I really want to just kind of get it on the stand and run it. However, I'm not entirely sure that's going to be able to happen this weekend because we're dealing with an impending tropical storm / possibly hurricane coming up here, and I've already got, not because of that, but just because of the weather pattern, we've got a bunch of showers coming in from the Gulf of Mexico that come in periodically, so it's pretty nasty and wet outside. So trying to time an engine run and having the time to do it between showers might be a little tough. Going back to the exhaust thing, so I was like, holy shit, this sucks, I don't have an exhaust for it. Luckily, I do actually have something that will fit. You can see it here. This is an exhaust I bought several years ago because I saw it on eBay and I thought it was cool, and I had had one of these, oh, probably back in the early 90s, that I put on some engines I had, I don't know, and I remember flying them on my Eagle 2 trainer plane, but I bought it then because I thought it was just cool as hell looking, and it's, you know, it's still a neat looking little exhaust. But the thing is, and I had already fitted this on the engine a month or two ago, this opening here was too large. So I had some gasket material, so I had to cut gasket material and position it here properly so that it will kind of work. So I'm going to be running, when I run this engine, I'm going to be running it with this on here. I'm going to have to make sure I position it properly because I could slide it one way or the other like that and offset it. So it's going to get run with this exhaust because that's all I've got. I have not been able to find the actual exhaust for this, and I really don't think I ever will. They're just that rare. This engine, or this exhaust, has no baffles. It's going to be loud. It might as well probably be an open exhaust, but at least, you know, it might look cool with the exhaust smoke coming out of there. But I want to read some of the stuff from this instruction manual here because this is how I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it exactly like they say here. I'm going to try and run it exactly as it would have been run back in 1982. So here I'm going to say, read here, propellers to use. Your Fox 4045 seems happiest running in the 12,000 to 16,000 RPM range. We suggest you use a 10.6 or a 10.7 narrow blade prop. So that's what I'll use. I'll use a 10.6 APC prop. Fuel to use here. For normal warm weather flying, Fox Gold Star fuel works fine. I have no idea what that is. So let's see here. Duke's fuel contains 10% nitro and Missile Mist fuel contains 25% nitro. Any of these fuels can be mixed to obtain the desired results. If you use another brand of fuel, be sure it contains a minimum of 12% castor oil and a total oil content of 18 to 22%. Now I think I've got, you know, some 18 to 22% oil fuel. I'm not exactly sure what the castor, or what the castor percentage is, or what the nitro is off the top of my head. I have to go dig in there and see. But that's probably what I'll use. I'm not going to be too concerned about doing one run with fuel that doesn't have the exact amount of castor. I'm really just not going to be too concerned about that. And if it is a concern, I'll just add a little bit of castor to my fuel tank when I run it. What was the other thing I wanted to show you here? So this is also, I was wondering about break-in because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this was run once at the factory. The thing is, if they ran them at the factory in the later days when the needle valves would stay on here, what they would say in their instructions is this was run at the factory, so all the settings are preset, so you should all you should have to do is just put it in your plane and fly with minor adjustments. Well, as you can see here, this thing wouldn't fit in the box with those needles installed, so they're taken out. So I'll get to that also. Break-in. No special break-in is required. Go ahead and install it in your airplane and fly. We do recommend that you keep your carburetor set slightly rich at all times in the interest of good compression and long life. In the interest of good compression and long life, we have fitted your motor as tight as we dare, which tells me this is a lapped iron piston sleeve. In the event your fit is too close, you'll have trouble with the piston seizing, engine stops abruptly, blah blah blah, whatever. You should be aware, however, that it takes about an hour and a half of running time to seat the rings, which this doesn't have rings, and in the case of bushing motors, the main bearing. So why they would say rings there, I'm not sure, unless they actually made a ringed version of this, and that was, I don't know, at the 45, because this one clearly doesn't have a ring. So anyway, fine tuning, let's see here. They actually tell you how to set your screws in here. Okay, here you go. Start your Fox motor. Okay, close the throttle, adjust the idle stop screw, the one on the top, so that you can see a hairline opening in the intake when the throttle is pushed closed. Holding the throttle shut, screw the low-speed needle, the one on the exhaust side, in until it is snug, then back out 2 turns. So I'll do that. Screw the high-speed needle in until it is snug, then back out 2.5 turns. Set the throttle at 1 Hz. So they're telling you the factory or the recommended initial settings for both high and low-speed needles, which is a good thing because a lot of people ask that, and most modern engines, more modern engines, don't say that because they're not that type of a needle. They don't have a, you know, it's an inset slow speed, low speed needle, and it's already preset, and they don't normally tell you that information. Now here's where things get really interesting, and this is what I was always kind of interested about with Fox engines, in that back in this day when the engines were being made and Fox was an active company, they would actually tell you, go ahead and disassemble your engine if you want, or modify your high-speed and low-speed needle if you want. In fact, they've got a diagram here that says, if after your Fox 40 or 45 is run in and you wish to alter the mixture contour, you can do so by working on the tip of the low-speed needle. So they're actually saying you can sit there and file or change the profile of these needles. Where in the hell would you ever see a manufacturer, aside from Fox, that would ever say, it's okay if you go and change what we provided for you, which is really interesting. Let's see here. Here they also talk about disassembly in case you do not, whatever, if you crash it and you have to disassemble it and all this kind of stuff. And of course, their factory service statement here is really interesting. We want your Fox engine to perform well for you. Technical advice can be obtained directly from Duke Fox by phoning area code blah blah blah. If your motor has become worse or crashed and you desire our factory repair service, mail it directly to us. We will disassemble the motor, replace all necessary parts, test run, and return the motor to you. Charges collect. It has not proven practical to make any sort of estimates. So anyway, I mean, this was a full service company back then. I mean, first they said it's okay if you disassemble the engine, and if you screw it up, you can send it back to us and we'll fix it for you. They say here you can alter the profiles of the high-speed needles. So it was an interesting time in modeling history then. So it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping to be able to get this engine on the stand here very soon. Maybe in this 4-day weekend I'll be able to do it. In fact, when I'm done here, I'm probably going to go ahead and install those needles, as they said, put this exhaust on, get a prop on it, and actually get it mounted to the stand so that it'll be ready to go if the weather turns out okay and I can just run it out real quick and do a run with it. But this was I won't say it's a quick look now because this has probably been a pretty long video, a look at a 1982 Fox 40 BBRC engine that in my mind looks like it's probably pretty damn new. I didn't take the head off. I didn't really want to do that, but I think the plug is loose, and you're not going to see any carbon on the top of this piston, I don't think, if we're going to be able to see it at all. I'm trying to see if I can get an angle. There you go. There's you can kind of look in there. So in my mind, I think this is a new engine. Will I run it rich? Yes, I'll run it a little bit rich. Let's see here, does it say anything about RPM in the break-in? Yeah, well, let's see, fine-tuning your Mark 10 carb. No, it doesn't really say anything. It just says run slightly rich. So I'll probably peak it out and see what it wants to peak out at and then back it off and run it like that. And it also, I think, said in these instructions, don't even expect to sit there and get it to idle very well until it's been broken in fully. But of course, me being me, I will actually try to see if I can't get a decent idle on it anyway, because I just don't know how many times I'll be running this engine. But anyway, that has been a look at a 1982 Fox 40 BBRC engine.